Biology, section 2, 6.2. Not really sure why the syllabus goes from digestion to plants and then back to digestion, but it does. So we'll just follow it. So, sorry. They want a definition for photosynthesis, which they give you. The fundamental process by which plants manufacture carbohydrates from raw materials using energy from light. So basic, and we stick to our definition rules. If that's what the definition is, that's what we use. So they want you to state the word equation for photosynthesis, and the supplement says to state the balanced equation, and then they give it to you as symbols. So very simple. This is something that you flashcard. So it's flashcarded. Note there are 6 units of carbon dioxide plus 6 units of water. Once light and chlorophyll combine, they convert that into 1 unit of glucose and 6 units of oxygen. Okay? So now they want to talk about how chlorophyll, light intensity, and carbon dioxide affect photosynthesis. So please note, inside of the chloroplast are chlorophyll, and what chlorophyll do is they absorb sunlight, well, light period, all the colors but green, which is why plants look green, that gets reflected. Okay? Point to note, chloroplast is the building, chlorophyll are the workers on the inside. So inside of chloroplast is chlorophyll, which does all the work. So Cambridge gives you the definition of chlorophyll. They trap light energy and convert it into chemical energy for the formation of carbohydrates for use and storage. Okay? Now photosynthesis requires 3 different things: carbon dioxide, chlorophyll, and light. Technically you need water too, but the plant can always get that from somewhere else. So if all 3 of these guys are there, photosynthesis takes place. If any one is missing, photosynthesis does not happen. And whichever one is present in the least amount is called the limiting factor. Okay? So basically, if I go back to this first one and make a little change, let's say for example, just pull up my pen. Let's say for example I have 5 light, 5 chlorophyll, and 1 carbon dioxide. Then all we can get out of this is 1 photosynthesis. Okay? Because there's only 1 carbon dioxide. But if I have 10 carbon dioxide, 5 chlorophyll, and 5 light, then all we can get is 5 photosynthesis, because these guys are the limiting factor. Another example I give is sandwiches. If you have 10 slices of bread, 10 slices of cheese, you can actually only make 5 sandwiches because there's not enough bread. There's plenty of cheese. You would have cheese left over, but you can only make 5 sandwiches because that is the limiting factor. So, oops, nope, not that. Stop clicking. Limiting factor. Okay, just a little note. So let's go to that next slide. The way we set up experiments to determine whether or not, so we can control light, carbon dioxide, and chlorophyll, is experiment number 1. We take a piece of plant that functions underwater, so a seaweed. We mix it with sodium hydrocarbonate. The carbonate in the solution provides the carbon dioxide, or the CO2. This is technically how the plant gets its CO2, since it's in the water. And what we do is we shine a light, and what we notice when we shine a light is that bubbles. Is this just really slow? Yes. Is that bubbles come off. Now if we move the light closer, or if we add more lights, we get more bubbles. And those bubbles are the oxygen being produced during photosynthesis. And if we were to do this type of test outside, what we would notice is that photosynthesis is maximum around lunchtime, and that's because that's when the sun is at its greatest peak. So leaves are technically giant sun sails. Their job is to catch sunlight, and in order for photosynthesis to take place, once they catch the sunlight, they need CO2. And the way they get CO2 is through holes in the bottom of the leaf called stomata, individual stoma. Okay? And when the stomata are full of water or turgid, they pop open. And when they are not full of water or they are flaccid, they shut. So if I want more CO2 in my leaf, I pump water into the guard cells, and it pops. The opening is called the stomata. The guard cells pop open, and the stomata opens. Okay? So open and close, just, oh no. We seem to be frozen. Oh, that's not good. Alright, hopefully that didn't mess up too much. So, stomata open versus stomata closed. Make sure you take a peek at this slide and look at it twice. Water is pumped into the guard cells to make them turgid and they pop open, or water is pulled out of the guard cells to make them flaccid and they shut. And of course, forcing water to move is going to be some form of active transport. Okay, so during photosynthesis, CO2 goes in, to the leaf, and oxygen and water move out. The water in this situation is in a gaseous form. It's a gas, so it does not move through osmosis. All of this is diffusion. So in order to maintain the diffusion gradient, the CO2 has to be used up as quickly as possible, and the O2 has to be gotten rid of as quickly as possible. The example I use is, if every time you were broke, your parents gave you money, how could you make sure that they give you lots of money? And the answer is to burn it, to just spend it as fast as you can. The faster you spend it, the more they'll give you. That's how the diffusion through the stomata work as well. The CO2 needs to be used up as quickly as possible, and as soon as it's used up, what we end up with is a high concentration outside and a low concentration inside. If we keep that nice and high and we keep this nice and low, diffusion will always move the CO2 in. And the same thing with the oxygen and the O2. If we keep the oxygen and the O2 high on the inside and it stays low on the outside, the plant can't control outside, but it can control inside. We can continuously force diffusion to take place. Okay, this is a slide that you just need to memorize. Your different layers of your leaf. I do not have what each layer does in a table for you. You need to sit down with your book and put that together. But you have your waxy cuticle, your upper epidermis. Please note, both of these guys are clear. The only thing that is green are the dots. That is the only stuff that will be green, which means it has chlorophyll in it. These are clear. Your bottom is pretty much clear, and there might be some chlorophyll and chloroplast in the guard cells. Okay, so I kind of tell you what the layers do here. The palisade layers do the photosynthesis, or perform most of the photosynthesis. The spongy mesophyll is nice and wet. That's where most of the gas exchange takes place. And then you have a vascular bottom of xylem and phloem. Please take a note. Xylem is on the top, phloem is on the bottom. They love to ask that. Okay, and their job is to transport and support. So I don't know if we're on 15 minutes, but let's see if we can bang through this. Limiting factor, carbon dioxide enrichment. Bang, bang, bang. Leaf structure, done. Photosynthesis, gas exchange, transport and support, done. Alright, so mineral requirements. It's straight in the syllabus, to be honest, for the core. Plants need nitrate ions for protein synthesis. You knew that already because proteins have nitrogen in them. So the nitrate ions are turned into proteins. The magnesium is needed for chlorophyll synthesis, so to make chlorophyll. So plants with no magnesium are not green. And I think the slides actually do. So fertilizers provide missing nutrients. Chemical fertilizers give exact amounts and they're water soluble. And it provides these nutrients instantly. So you have 3 letters, N, P, and K. So they tell you your nitrogen, your phosphorus, and your potassium in each bag. Natural fertilizers like cow poop, they're not specific. They last a little longer because it has to break down first, and it breaks down kind of slowly. Very long term. Throw it on the plants, leave it there for a couple of months. It'll feed them over time. Okay. So nitrate ions are for protein production. Without nitrate ions, you will get poor plant growth, poor leaf structure. Your plant really won't grow too big. Magnesium ions are for chlorophyll. Without it, you will have, or a lack of magnesium results in yellow leaves, and this is called chlorosis, and that's yellow leaves. And there should be one for the lack of potassium as well, but it's not in the syllabus, so I'm not even going to go crazy. But that results in small flowers and fruits. Okay? So there is a problem with fertilizers, and that's if they wash into standing water. Alright, so there are micro plants, or tiny plants called phytoplankton inside of lakes, rivers, streams, oceans, all of that jazz. So if we suddenly wash all this fertilizer, which contains lots of nitrogen and phosphorus and potassium, don't know why that's not there, into the water, the phytoplankton suddenly grow like crazy. And as they grow and grow and grow, it becomes what's called an algae bloom. Now, 2 things happen with the algae bloom. The first one is the algae die and they break down, and the bacteria that break them down start to use up lots of oxygen in the water source. So the bacteria are using the oxygen first. Part 2 is once the algae bloom takes place, if I could just get a different color marker, what happens is it grows along the top and it blocks the sunlight. And the blocked sunlight causes the seagrass to die. And when the seagrass dies, the same bacteria that broke down the dead algae start to accumulate there, and they suck up the oxygen as well. Once the oxygen starts to die in the lake, all the fish start to die. And those same bacteria that caused all the problems grow even more and suck up even more oxygen. And you end up with this dead lake that nothing can survive in. Okay? Eutrophication. If you ever see a question asking you about why is it bad to use fertilizers, or why is it bad to put sewage in water, sewage does the same thing. Sewage increases the bacteria. The key to this is the problem of bacteria. Once the bacteria go crazy, the water's no good. Okay? Now hopefully I stayed under 15 minutes. But as usual, let's double check the syllabus. Describe the use of overuse fertilizers, yes. Nitrate and magnesium deficiency, yes, 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 yes. Cool. That's a wrap.